Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Monday, January 10th. And we do this each day as a result of a unique partnership we share with Alaska Public Media. So thank you for joining us. If you'd like additional weather information, you can go online to weather.gov and it'll take you to a map of the United States. From there, you can click on any location to check up on the weather, the forecast, any watches, warnings, advisories, and there's all sorts of other information. So if you have family, friends in other parts of the country, or you want to check out other parts of Alaska, you can see Alaska's down there in the lower left of the screen, as well as Hawaii. Well, we have a fair number of things to talk about today. A storm system that's been impacting the Panhandle since this weekend has produced at least 26 inches of snow reported at Mud Bay in the vicinity of Haines, where a winter storm warning is still in effect through 9 o'clock this evening. Ketchikan picked up over 2.5 inches of rain for a new daily rainfall record for January 9th, with additional rainfall today. So this is creating some issues. A flood watch remains in effect for southern part of the Panhandle as a result of snow melt that could create some nuisance flooding. But roads are icy where the precipitation has changed over to rain. You have the frozen ground, so very slippery roads, portions of the Panhandle. There's also a very heavy snow ice load on the roofs that could lead to collapse, and there's still a threat of avalanches, so keep those things in mind. We are going to experience, though, some warming temperatures, areas of light snow across the interior as we go through midweek. Another thing I want to just quick pass along, there is a little bit of light freezing rain being reported eastern half of the Kenai Peninsula along the Seward Highway, so especially driving between Anchorage and Seward or Whittier could be a little tricky as we go through this evening, but no heavy amounts of ice expected. And then above normal temperatures and precipitation are anticipated here across much of the state here as we go through mid and late month. Looking at the hazards weather map showing the watch warnings and advisories, look at this for a change. We still just have that winter storm warning in effect for the northern portion of the Panhandle there, including Haines till 9 o'clock this evening, and a flood watch that may be extended there across the southern Panhandle into tonight or tomorrow. Still on the fence on that, but nevertheless there's been quite a bit of rainfall. Looking at the webcams, we can see in Haines the snow will the heavier snow will begin to diminish as we go through this evening. And further south, Heidelberg has rain showers and temperatures in the 40s, as does Metlakatla and Ketchikan. It's been very rainy and mild there. And then I wanted to just show this nice image. West central area there, Nulato, just beautiful sky. And those of you in the at least the western and central interior are going to see at least a period of quieter weather, though some lighter snow redeveloping, nothing too terribly heavy. I want to pass on the James Webb Space Telescope that was launched by NASA on December 25th, Christmas Day, is now reported fully deployed. They have the main primary mirror now unfolded and also the solar array to help power this incredible telescope. We hope to have some images coming into us by summertime. So looking at the satellite image, well, we can see that we have plenty of cloud cover across the state in the primary system. Low pressure, at least the mid-levels, the atmosphere is lifting northward there through the north-central Gulf. We also have another low just south of the eastern half of the Aleutians, lifting back toward the north-northwest, and a number of other smaller features there embedded within the pattern across the North Pacific. But mainly high pressure exists across eastern Russia, the Arctic Ocean, Arctic coast into northwest Canada, and low pressure is residing from the Gulf back down to near and south of the eastern Aleutians. And these systems are at least going to gradually weaken a bit, but the one along the Gulf, along the Gulf Coast, particularly the Panhandle, will continue to produce rain overnight, especially the outer central coast channels there. And that will linger into the day on Tuesday. The system out over the eastern Aleutians is sitting there and will continue to sit and spin with a trough of low pressure, an elongated trough of low pressure developing from the southwest portion of the state, kind of from the YK deltas on up along the Yukon River, north of the Alaska Range up to the Yukon Flats. And that's going to be a focus of some areas of light snow as milder air returns northward into the interior. So at least it's not going to be as cold as it was here from around and just after the new year. We are going to see temperatures moderating statewide, and when you get that warmer, moist air coming inland, that usually triggers some lower cloud cover and some light precipitation. But temperatures Tuesday morning will generally be above freezing across the central and lower panhandle. And as we get out toward south central areas, lows have come up quite a bit, only 4 below expected Glen Allen, otherwise 20s elsewhere, Anchorage southward. And temperatures Tuesday afternoon will be flirting with 30 or so in Anchorage, but into the 30s above freezing, maybe as warm as 41 at Kodiak. And if you look over there in through the Panhandle, 44 at Ketchikan, as well as up there at Sitka. And Wednesday morning lows will generally stay above freezing in the southern half of the Panhandle and along the coast there around Kodiak Island. But as we go into Wednesday afternoon, temperatures should get back up lower 40s, the outer coastal areas of the Panhandle, and generally at or above freezing along coastal areas of the Gulf. And looking at the far north, still chilly temperatures there, 20s, some lower 30s below, but not nearly as cold as what we were seeing here a week ago. And still look for afternoon temperatures to remain sub-zero along and north of the Brooks Range, including the North Slope and Arctic coast. Readings, though, will moderate along the Yukon River back up a bit above zero. And temperatures Wednesday morning still sub-zero there through the northwest and along the Arctic coast. But as we go into Wednesday afternoon, temperatures do come up a bit there along the Alaska Range, perhaps into the teens. And then looking at the southwest portion of the state, the inner southwest areas are coming upward. Lows Tuesday morning, single digits above and below zero. Generally around or above freezing as you get out through the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. And then Tuesday afternoon, we'll get temperatures creeping back up into the single digits above zero and some teens showing up, especially there, Aniak and as we get to Bethel. And then as we extend out along the Alaska Peninsula from Kodiak Island down into at least the eastern Aleutians, highs in the upper 30s to even a few lower 40s. And on Wednesday morning, low temperatures will continue to creep a bit upward, especially up along the lower and middle Kuskokwim River Basin. And by Wednesday afternoon, we expect temperatures to be back up around freezing Lake Iliamna through King Salmon on down into the Aleutian chain, and still a bit cooler there, 2 above at Imanak. But looking at the temperature forecast, the 8 through 14 day outlook, January 18th through the 24th, and this is essentially mid-month. Up into the latter portion of the month, we are expecting much above normal temperatures centered on the southwest part of the state. And precipitation will average above normal as we get that milder, more moist air coming northward off the Gulf and North Pacific.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving along now to your flying weather. If you have a flight planned Tuesday into Wednesday, we'll continue to see widespread IFR conditions along the Gulf Coast and Panhandle Tuesday morning. We have lingering moisture there, lingering troughiness just as a result of the system, the low pressure weakening there off of the Kenai. And then we'll be watching an area of low pressure too in the central eastern Aleutians, creating some IFR conditions there on up to especially the south side of the Alaska Peninsula. And then as we go into Tuesday afternoon, some of that moisture is going to slowly lift northward with a little milder air as temperatures are going to moderate across the Yukon River Valley. We are expecting areas of clouds, lower ceilings, and some areas of light snow to form. We'll also see IFR conditions continuing from the Panhandle westward along the Gulf Coast to Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay out up into along areas of the west coast, particularly the lower Yukon Delta and up in through the northwest. By Wednesday morning, we see the IFR conditions still lingering there over the Panhandle, over at least the western half of the Gulf up through Prince William Sound along the Alaska Range. And then again, as a trough of low pressure forms along and just south of the Yukon River Valley from southwest to northeast, that's going to create extensive IFR conditions across central areas. along with some areas of light snow, and that feature will persist as we head into Wednesday afternoon from southwest portions of the state up through the northeast, especially Brooks Range to the Alcan border, and still we expect IFR conditions to linger across the Panhandle. So past conditions on Tuesday for Anaktuvuk will start out VFR in the morning, becoming MVFR, and those will eventually deteriorate to IFR come Tuesday night into Wednesday. Adigan, same thing, VFR early on Tuesday, becoming MVFR. Lake Clark and Merrill will generally hold in IFR conditions on Tuesday. And as we go up to Rainy Pass, look for IFR conditions generally speaking, but as you fly west of the west entrance, you'll encounter MVFR conditions. Same thing at Windy Pass, generally IFR conditions there in the Alaska range, but on the north side, MVFR north of the north entrance. Isabel, similar thing, IFR conditions through the pass, but MVFR conditions as you fly further north of the north entrance. Mentasta should generally have MVFR conditions on Tuesday. Tanita will remain IFR. And Portage is also expected to stay IFR conditions on Tuesday, including Prince William Sound. And then, of course, much of the Panhandle will remain IFR throughout Tuesday, with Chilkoot and White definitely there in the north end. Freezing levels have come up a bit along at least the eastern half of the Gulf Coast, up around 2,000 feet or so, 4,000 feet Haida Gwaii. A little milder air as you get down there, especially south of Vancouver. Surface freezing line runs along the outer coast there of the Panhandle to just off of the Kenai, across Kodiak Island, and then across the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, and then back down across the western half of the Aleutians. Greatest threat for any icing, some moderate icing possible from around Prince William Sound eastward through portions of the Panhandle, especially the outer coast between 5,000 and 15,000 feet. And look for icing potential, rather a lighter icing, 2,000 to 10,000 feet central areas as moisture creeps northward, and also between 2,000 and 10,000 feet in through the central and eastern Aleutians. Strongest upper level winds at 30,000 feet are coming onshore from the southwest through British Columbia, Vancouver. And then as we drop down to 9,000 feet, similarly strongest winds are there around Vancouver to 60 knots. Some areas of southeast interior of Alaska, southern Yukon, 40, 45 knots. And then looking at winds at 3,000 feet, the strongest winds are lower Chukchi Sea from the northeast, 45 knots to as high as 65 knots there around St. Lawrence Island in the Russian coast. We also see that low circulation there over the eastern Aleutians, bringing some stronger winds, 40 to 45 knots there. As a result, we expect still some lingering turbulence around the southern half of the Panhandle, surface to 5,000 feet on Tuesday. As we go further northwestward, there from around Point Hope south to Kotzebue Sound, the Seward Peninsula, and St. Lawrence Island, surface to 4,000 feet. And then a rather broad area of surface to 4,000 foot turbulence from the Alaska Peninsula westward through the Aleutian chain. So that does it for your flight weather. If you are planning a flight, check the latest conditions and forecast, and have a safe flight if you can get out.
It can be many miles long, from 1 to 100 feet high, traveling at 400 miles per hour. This ocean monster is known as a tsunami, and it can wreak havoc on coastal populations and landscapes. A tsunami is a series of ocean waves caused by any large and sudden disturbance of the sea surface. Tsunamis can be generated by landslides, volcanic eruptions, or even meteorite impacts in the ocean, but they are most often caused by an earthquake where there's a sudden displacement of the ocean floor. When that happens, there's a transfer of energy from the sea floor to the ocean, causing waves on the surface to radiate outward in all directions. In deep waters, these waves may not even be detectable. But when the tsunami enters shallower waters, the wave speed slows and its height increases. The water along the coast may recede noticeably. A large wall of turbulent water, called a bore, may also form. When the tsunami hits, it may come ashore like a fast-rising flood and strike with devastating force. The series of waves may continue for hours. The first one may not be the last or the largest. For your safety, know the potential warning signs of an incoming tsunami. A strong earthquake that causes difficulty standing. A rapid rise or fall of the water along the coast. A loud ocean roar. When you're in a coastal area, it's important to keep alert for messages from local officials, such as lifeguards, police, the U.S. Tsunami Warning Centers, and NOAA All Hazards Radio. If you find yourself in a location of a tsunami strike, here's what you need to do to stay safe. Keep calm. Walk or run to higher ground, 100 feet above sea level or 1 mile inland. Do not drive. Keep roads open for emergency vehicles. If you cannot move to higher ground, use the stairs to get to the 3rd floor or higher in a sturdy building. Follow all instructions from local officials and stay out of coastal areas until authorities issue an all clear. Tsunamis can strike any coastline in the world and can affect locations thousands of miles away from where they formed. They may be uncommon, but the devastation they cause makes them a deadly force in nature. For more information on tsunamis, go to the following sites.
Tsunami, a killer wave, speeding across the ocean at 400 miles an hour. It smashes into land, destroying everything in its path. Tsunamis do not have a season, but they can strike any coast at any time. If one forms close to the shore, the shaking of the earth and a loud roar may warn of its approach. But when a tsunami forms across the ocean, it can take hours to reach the shore, enough time to warn people to move to higher land. Over the past 20 years, NOAA has developed DART, a real-time monitoring system that provides data for forecasting tsunamis. The DART systems have been deployed in earthquake-prone areas throughout the ocean, including the Pacific and Indian basins. A DART system combines a surface buoy and a sensor on the ocean floor. This sensor detects changes in water pressure and seismic activity and transmits the data back to the surface. If these changes indicate a tsunami may form, the buoy signals an alert via satellite to the tsunami warning centers in Alaska and Hawaii. Back at the centers, scientists plug the data into pre-existing models. These models predict the height, the arrival time, and the coastal locations that the tsunami will hit. Watches and warnings are issued to the affected communities so preparations can begin. Today, 47 DART stations are positioned all around the world, ready to detect and warn coastal communities about the next potential tsunami. With the DART system and tsunami warning centers in place, we are now better prepared to predict a killer wave before it strikes.
December 26, 2004. What began as an undersea earthquake in the Indian Ocean ended as the most deadly tsunami in recorded history, with nearly 240,000 lives lost. This was a devastating wake-up call to coastal communities and tsunami research. Prior to this event, only 6 of NOAA's Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunami, or DART, buoys were in place. Scientists could only predict tsunami arrival times, not flood potential. And there was not a global tsunami warning system. Today, 10 years later, we can tell a different story. U.S. and international coastlines are far better prepared for such a catastrophe, thanks in large part to research and technology developed at the NOAA Center for Tsunami Research at Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory. NOAA's DART array is now complete, with 39 buoys operated by the National Weather Service's National Data Buoy Center. Along with 21 international buoys, this array can measure a tsunami wave as small as 1 centimeter in the open ocean and provide these data in real time to forecast when a tsunami may hit the coast and how much flooding there will be. NOAA scientists and engineers are currently testing the 4th-generation DART buoy that will be able to measure local tsunamis as well as distant ones. Flooding forecast models incorporate local topography and historical tsunami data in order to more accurately predict exactly how a tsunami might behave when it reaches shore. NOAA has 75 site-specific models that can provide high-resolution flooding forecasts for effective response and mitigation during a tsunami event. NOAA has gathered data from every tsunami since 2004 to improve its forecast models. Today, it operates the world's only real-time tsunami flooding forecast system using DART data to accurately compute flooding forecasts. The NOAA Tsunami Warning Centers make tsunami data available on the internet and issue advisories, watches, and warnings through the Emergency Alert System and via NOAA weather radios. While it is impossible to prevent a tsunami, we are now much better prepared to detect them and predict their paths and impacts, so those in coastal communities can take the steps necessary to safely protect themselves.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and now we'll talk about sea ice edge. And one thing to note, some of the most extensive sea ice we've seen on the Bering in about a decade, since around 2012. And we're going to continue to see the ice advance south and westward with winds continuing out of the northeast along the west coast. So that'll continue over the next day or two. And the ice has advanced as far west and southward as St. Matthew. So yes, it's definitely made some inroads. We certainly had some very cold weather through November and December for this ice to build, but we are looking for temperatures to moderate, especially across the southwestern portion of the state. As we head through mid and late month, there's a good chance of above normal temperatures there. But otherwise, looking at the inner canals of the Panhandle, winds will be southeast to south 20 to 25 knots, waves 3 to 5 feet, but maybe as high as 8 feet there around Dixon Entrance. Southerly winds in the lower outer coast there at 20 knots and turning more westerly once you get north of Sitka through Yakutat, with waves running generally 10 to 13 feet. Wednesday, winds will come down further, generally out of the southeast to south 10 to 15 knots through the inner channels, waves running a few feet, and then turning westerly through the lower outer coast and more southeasterly Sitka on up toward Yakutat, with waves running generally in the 8 to maybe as high as 10-foot range. And looking at the northwestern Gulf, south central areas of the state, winds will generally be southwesterly, 15 to 20 knots out over the Gulf, 15 knots there, Prince William Sound, 2-foot waves, and then where water is open there through the lower half of Cook Inlet, southeast to south winds 10 to 15 knots, waves 2 to 4 feet. On Wednesday, winds will be turning more out of the southeast and east across the Gulf, especially the open waters, Prince William Sound east, 15 knots, waves 3 feet, and through the lower portion of Cook Inlet, northeast to east winds at 20 knots and waves 4 to 6 feet. For Kodiak Island in the Alaska Peninsula, winds on the Gulf and North Pacific side will be out of the south-southeast, around 15 knots. Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait picking up to 20 to 30 knots as you get off of the Alaska Peninsula, waves 10 to 12 feet. Lesser so, more easterly, 25 knots on the Bering side. And then on Wednesday, look for winds to be somewhat variable to start around Kodiak Island, 10-15 knots, but turning southeasterly and picking up from 20 to 30 knots, especially as you get southwestward from Chiknik down toward Cold Bay. And then across the eastern Aleutians, that low pressure there over the eastern Aleutians, you can see the circulation, counterclockwise circulation, 25 to 35 knot winds around the low center. Backside of it, winds are out of the northeast and north on the Bering side to 35 knot gales. And we expect waves to be generally 12 to 16 feet on the North Pacific side, and anywhere from around 10 to as high as 18, 19 feet as you get around and west of AKwx. And then Wednesday, winds come down further, generally 10 to 20 knots through the eastern Aleutians, and more out of the northeast and north as you get from AKwx and AKwx westward, picking up as maybe as high as 35 knots there. And then for Tuesday, the ice there is rather extensive along the southwest and west coasts, and winds will continue out of the northeast 20 to 30 knots, waves running around 10 feet west of St. Matthew and St. Paul and St. George. And still on Wednesday, look for winds out of the northeast at 25 to 30 knots generally speaking, so the ice will continue to advance a bit south and westward through midweek. Along the Arctic coast, winds will be out of the west 10 to 20 knots where the ice is in place, and then turning more northerly through the lower Chukchi Sea, passing through the Bering Strait and accelerating to 35 knots there north side of St. Lawrence Island. And then along the Arctic coast, winds on Wednesday will be westerly 15 to 20 knots, Prudhoe Bay on over toward Kaktovik, and then down along the Chukchi Sea and northwest coast, winds will be northerly 15 to 25 knots, picking up to 30 knots passing through the strait and on the north side of St. Lawrence. Quick check of the weather maps overnight early. Tuesday morning, low pressure there just off the Kenai, weakening frontal system off of the Panhandle coast. The low pressure there out over the central eastern Aleutians. That low will continue to sit and spin, working its way slowly eastward with a trough setting up through the central portion of the state that will provide some areas of lighter snow, but moderating temperatures, at least beginning here through mid and late week. Thank you for watching and have a good night.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.